In the process of you watching me rebuild these stagecoaches that used to run in Yellowstone Park, you have watched me do a number of steam bending projects incorporating into this coach. This front curve, this side rails, these what look like skis, actually called rockers, the bent arm on the rear seat, the back curve panel. There's just lots of steam bending in here. Now we've also been doing some steam bending on this top that goes on these stagecoaches. But I thought, I have never shown you an alternative to steam bending. And that's what we're going to do today. So far, almost everything in this top has been steam bent. The only thing that has not been has been this vertical curve piece in the front and the rear. That is sawn out. But the drip edges are bent, the bows are bent, the side frames are bent. And I need to make a drip edge for this edge here. Now I did steam bend my first one, but I bent it too short. So I need to do that again, but instead of steam bending, I'm going to show you that there is an alternative way to do this, and it's by cutting out 1/4 inch thick slats and laminating together, which actually makes a really strong product when it is done. When I do all these projects on your side of the screen, it might be interesting to say, oh, that's how it's done. But I don't have a steamer. And to put together the equipment to do the steam bending process is somewhat involved, especially if you do what I do, and I bend predominantly kiln-dried wood. Most people say it's not possible, but I get by with it because I steam under pressure and I force that moisture back in. There's a whole playlist that goes through all this process of steam bending if you're interested. But for your sake to say, what if I wanted to do this but I don't have the ability to steam bend? Is there an alternative way? There is, and that's through lamination. So my drip rails are 3/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches. So in order to get 1.5 inches, I have 6 1/4 inch pieces by 7/8, and when I am all laminated together, then I have room to plane it down to my even 3/4 and clean all my edges up. So a 1/4 inch piece to conform to this bend, I can just push it and make it go cold without steaming. When I add 6 of them together, it makes that resistance a little bit more, but they will go if I put some clamps on them. So the test is to take the first one and see how much you can get by with, conforming it to that curve by itself, dry and cold. And a 1/4 inch is going to make this bend because it is a fairly gradual bend. 2 becomes still doable, but it becomes a little more difficult by hand. So I am going to have to use clamps to accomplish all 6 of these. So these all came off of one board, and you can see when I cut it to length, I had a pencil mark across the end. Well, that pencil mark becomes my reference to make sure that I have all my wood in the same direction as it was in the board, that I wouldn't inadvertently have 1 or 2 that are upside down. They would probably still bend, but I'm going to try to keep these all in their original placement as far as how they were cut out of that board. So I use that as a reference. And when these come around the bend, they aren't going to be all even like this. They are going to end up being a little bit stair-stepped, about like so. That's kind of how I want them to bend, is kind of in this configuration when I start. Not so much like this. Otherwise the other end will be exaggerated. So I'm going to kind of put them in a stair-step configuration when I make my bend. I have these extra long so I have room to trim this when I am done. And of course this is assuming that I'm going to start at one end and clamp that into place and bring this other end around. Now it is possible that you can do it differently. I could clamp this all in the middle and then bring each end around individually, but I'm going to try it this direction because this makes a really easy clamp, and then I have leverage to bring this around, and then I only have actually one difficult bend to bring into place. It's the only reason I'm going to do it this way. So I have my top frame sitting on these slats that extend my sawhorse out, so I have actually kind of propped this up so that these slats will be a little closer to the top and easier to clamp to my frame. So I screwed this block underneath to this one, and it's extra long to allow this to come out this far. So when I am steam bending, I'm always trying to look ahead and try to make it as efficient as possible because I have a certain amount of time available to me. And it's the same with laminations. So I want to have all my clamps handy where I don't have to be running around chasing for clamps when I'm in the middle of getting all this clamped up. And I already have a clamp in the corner here that will allow my C-clamp to come this direction when I start and get that clamped. When this is at an angle, I kind of need to clamp this at an angle this direction. And you can see my clamp is just barely going to fit when I'm up tight, so the other end, when I'm sticking clear out, I'm probably going to have to use a pipe clamp to get it in. So there's one thing about laminating, it's a messy job because glue is everywhere. And I'm going to use my frame here for my form, but I don't want it sticking to my form. So I'm actually going to put some tape on here to keep that glue from adhering to my frame. And it's not so much a big deal on my supports here, but it could be kind of messy. So I'm going to put some plastic around those as well. Just be a little easier to clean up, I think. So I'm going to try to glue these all up kind of in a group and lay them all out the same direction here. When I spread my glue, I want glue on this first one, but not on this face here, so I'm just going to bring them all up the same direction. But these in the middle, I think, to have glued both sides. But this outside one, I don't. I'm going to want that one there. So I'm going to put glue on this face to begin with, and separate these two and rotate these all 180. Glue that side, and I'm going to have to remember to put them back in their original position, remembering my mark on the other end, and then bring them all up in the same pattern, like so, and actually begin my clamping process. This is where it begins to be just a mess to do. So you've seen me in the past use this spreader, which is just a piece of hacksaw blade. I think this is an 18 tooth that I crimped a 7/16 handle to it, and this becomes my spreader. And I'm going to keep a bucket here with a little dab of water on it, so I can either clean up my hands, or when I'm done, I'm just going to put the spreader in that water just to keep it so it's a little easier to clean up. Well, let's see how we go. Everybody's going to say, why don't you have gloves on? Maybe I should have. When you're steaming, heat and moisture is a critical thing. Here it's going to be glue setting. Get all this done before the glue starts to set up too bad. So I'm going to separate this one, and separate this one, and rotate these. This is the set that becomes messy, because it's wet on the other side too. Oh, let's see what we got here. Get all these turned the right direction here now. You can work these around. Give that a go. It'll be just a matter of letting it set and cure. Once it sets, it'll keep its shape. Well, that's the two different approaches of laminating. This one I started at one end and went to the other. That one I started in the middle and worked out both ways. I think they're both going to work well. It's kind of a personal preference. This glue takes about 24 hours to set up to get its full strength. Then we'll take them off and see what we have. Well, we've had our cure time. Let's see what we got. Now this is the biggest advantage of laminating. Once it's set up, you have very little spring back, if any at all. We moved maybe 1/8 of an inch. You just stay right there. You all know this glue, when it's cured, is kind of hard on planers. Carbide takes it a little better. The old high-speed steel blades, they don't like it so much, so I'll knock off the worst of it anyway. That makes a really nice fit. I started out with what's called hit and miss, which is actually 15/16. Now I have it planed down to 3/4, and we're going to match exactly our front drip rail. So this is my front corner iron for my top, and I don't want a screw to hit either one of these bolts, but I'd like it as close to the front as I could. So this corner is the inside of my curved front frame. So it looks like I can come back about 1.25 inches and still miss these bolts. So since this is just a butt joint here, I would like that screw as close as possible. And that 1.25 inches is going to put me right here. It's possible that I could put a screw in here, but I don't recall that the old ones ever had a screw there. And I'm going to come back roughly 6 inches. And I think the rest of these, I can just put a screw in the center somewhat between these bows. Well, that's a decent alternative to steam bending. Makes a really nice accurate bend once those laminations set. So I got to turn this over and put my upholstery tack strip around the edge. And I think we can put it on. Maybe next time. Appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.